Trump's latest request in this documents case, just one of many requests his legal team has made. It comes at a time when the Supreme Court is under new scrutiny for politically charged rulings. But how likely is President Trump and his legal team, how likely are they to succeed? To discuss that, joining me now is Bernarda Villalona. She is a legal analyst, a criminal defense attorney, a former prosecutor. Ms. Villalona, thank you for joining us again.
Good morning, Mitch. Thank you for having me.
All right, well, let's talk about delay tactic versus actual legal strategy here. It was interesting to me what the Trump team here asked the Supreme Court to do and what they didn't ask the Supreme Court to do. I know you've read the motion. You do your homework. What did you take away from the filing?
Well, the most important part is that still we do not know why Donald Trump was in possession of these classified documents. So despite this filing of 296 pages, we still don't have an answer to that. But also, more importantly, in that filing, at no point do the attorneys allege that Donald Trump actually declassified any of these documents and had an opportunity to do so. Third point here, the most important point is that despite all of this, Donald Trump's team is not asking the Supreme Court to stop the DOJ from actually reviewing these documents to stop their investigation, but rather to say, like, look, the special master should be able to review these 100 or so documents, and guess what? So should my team. So that's what Donald Trump is really looking for. He's looking to actually to be able to review these documents themselves in order to be able to form a better defense.
And that's what makes me think that this is really just some legal delay maneuvering here, is because the idea that you need to get the Supreme Court to step in to allow the special master to also review documents that you are not requesting that the Department of Justice stop reviewing, it just tells me you wanted to make a court filing and stretch this out as long as possible.
Absolutely. But we know that this is Donald Trump's team's playbook from day one. We have known this for years already. And the reality is that, number one, if it was so urgent, why did your team wait 2 weeks to make this filing, this petition to the Supreme Court? Because we had the decision from the 11th Circuit 2 weeks ago. So where's the urgency? Where's the emergency? Where's the possible irreparable harm that you may be facing? It just does not exist. We knew that there was going to be an appeal from the Supreme Court, whether it was from the DOJ or from Trump's team. I'm just disappointed in Trump's team in the sense of you waited 2 weeks for this to happen.
Well, and you use the term irreparable harm there. That is what Trump is saying, that he would suffer irreparable harm if the special master didn't also have a chance to review those 100 documents. But the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, I want to get this right, said that claims about declassification are irrelevant. And to me, that reads that he had no right to the documents, doesn't matter if he declassified them, and thus he can't possibly suffer irreparable harm because they aren't his documents and he can't do with them what he pleases. Am I reading that right? Me not having a law degree, that is?
Mitch, you are reading that correctly. I don't think anyone needs a law degree to be able to understand, look, these are documents that are based on top secret, national secret. It's detrimental to the national defense of the country. You are no longer president. You shouldn't have those documents. Also, executive privilege. You are no longer president. You no longer have executive privilege. But regardless of any of that, in the end, when we're talking about the charges that the DOJ alleged in their original application for the search warrant, it doesn't matter whether it's been classified or declassified for those charges to go through.
Well, yeah, and they're also not offering much of a defense in that way. They're just sort of delaying things. There's not a defense that he should have had them or why he had them or why he had a right to them. It's just sort of, hey, everyone should have a chance to look at these, including the special master. So Supreme Court, decide that that's the case so that he can take longer to look at them.
Exactly, because I'm the former president. Because I'm the former president and this involves the former president, that means that the Supreme Court should get involved. That's pretty much what they've been alleging from day one. But guess what? Donald Trump, despite having been a former president, hasn't had much luck from the Supreme Court in getting the Supreme Court to actually get involved in any of the legal proceedings. This is not the first time that he's been before the Supreme Court. Remember, he tried to prevent the January 6th committee from getting documents from the National Archives. And what did the Supreme Court say? No, that's not going to happen. There's more of an interest in trying to get to the bottom of what happened on January 6th than there is an interest about your personal interest. Secondly, in terms of the New York Attorney General getting his tax documents, the Supreme Court also got involved. You're not above the law. So if there's a criminal investigation, yes, that will preempt any personal interest you may have.
And Chief Justice Roberts has been especially strong in saying that no one is above the law, whether it's a current or former president. So they've set that precedent there, at least in speaking publicly. We'll see if it holds legally and judicially here. Now, the way these Supreme Court decisions work is they're always citing previous precedent. Is there previous precedent for the Supreme Court stepping in to stop a criminal investigation regarding classified documents? This all seems like very new ground, and that they would, even the Trump legal team would have a very tough time citing a legal precedent for why this should happen.
Absolutely. So, of course, this is uncharted territory, but we have to think in terms of the appeal to the Supreme Court, the petition to the Supreme Court, it's on a narrow issue, meaning that they're only saying that the 11th Circuit didn't have jurisdiction in order to come in and make a decision. But let me just point out to you, if we really think about it, remember Judge Cannon, what she stated after the 11th Circuit ruled against her and said, you were wrong to begin with, Judge Cannon then amended her order. In amending her order, she makes it moot for the Supreme Court even to look at this issue because she on her own decided to change her order. She could have avoided that and just left her order as is and had Judge Geary abide by the order from the 11th Circuit. Either way, I highly doubt that this panel, the Supreme Court justices, will review this case because there is no need to review this case because it is well set that there is jurisdiction by the 11th Circuit to be able to make such a decision, especially since there was an injunction that was put in place, meaning stop. You can't look at these documents. So the DOJ had no other reason but to actually ask a higher power, the highest court of the country, to look into this.
Well, and that is the very interesting thing about this that we were talking about with Joe Khalil earlier, is that it's not a done deal that the Supreme Court will hear this. And you just heard Bernardo Villalona, our legal analyst and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor, say that there is no guarantee and maybe a likelihood that they will not hear it. We'll have to wait and see, as we have another week to wait for a response from the Department of Justice. But Bernardo Villalona, thank you very much for your time, your legal expertise. We know we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation in your cable lineup. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-based, unbiased coverage.